So, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And what about you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for asking. So, how's your day going?
It's pretty normal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I started with the newspaper, and then uh, I have started reading a book, so I was reading that before joining this session.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Okay.
Lead Without No Title by Robin Sharma.
Oh, okay. How's it? Is it interesting?
Yes, it is. I
Okay.
I finished three chapters, and I'm in fourth one. I mean,
Mm.
yes, chapters, of course.
Okay. That's great. All right. So, I hope you're ready for today's session. Were you able to go through the session notes?
Yeah,
All right.
it's about uh, the generation gap,
Generation gaps.
right?
Yes. Okay. So if we take any household in India, we can generally see three generations. So you can see the child, the parent, and the grandparents.
Right,
Right? Or most of the households in India have three generations inside a home, and of course, each generation have their own perspective. They have their own thought processes. They have their own way of working, and generally people of different generations don't get along well with each other. We have differences when it comes to generations,
right, right.
right? So in your understanding, what do you mean by a generation gap?
By generation gap, I mean to understand that there is a difference between the thought process of things. Like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, the three generations. Then, if we are talking about any topic, then the ideologies of everyone would differ. Take it of the grandparents, and then the parents, and then children. They will be thinking in their own way, and everyone thinks that they are the right one. I mean, their idea is the right one, and there is a gap, and anyone is unable to convince others generally. So that creates the problem, and that we generally mean as a generation gap. If no one is able to compromise, then we think that the problem is prevalent.
Absolutely. Yes. And have you ever felt this generation gap with your relatives or with your parents at any point of time in your life so far?
Uh, I belong from a family where people generally don't sit together and talk. It's like if the father is saying something, you have to follow them. You don't
Okay.
question them regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Or so I don't have find that way, but people
Mm.
generally find. Or I can. I mean, I have experienced with some other parents and their children that when
Mm.
they were talking, they were unable to make each other understand their point of
Mm.
view. Or if I take a general topic, then generally in the topic of marriage, we see that gap prevalent very easily.
Mm-hmm.
That the children generally like that they will go for the arranged love marriage, but the father or even the grandparents, they want the arranged marriage and something like that.
Mm. That's right. So that's where this generation gap is very much evident, and
Right,
you generally don't get along in that when it comes to that particular topic. Yes.
right,
Okay.
right.
So, in your experience so far, when have you felt the generation gap the most?
It's about, like I said, in case of marriages, or even in
Mm,
the case of studies, we find it. Like people belonging from the middle class family or the
mm,
lower background family, where the grandparents or parents think that they have experienced a lot. They think that whatever they are deciding for their children, that is always right. Like they
mm,
will say that you have to become a doctor, and in
mm,
many cases the children has no option, and he just takes the science or start studying that course. So that is
mm,
also a problem. and that is the area where I have seen the generation gap, especially in the locality I'm living in, and all those places where people generally belongs to that background, and that conservative mindset is prevalent.
That is true. That's right. So, do you think is it possible to overcome generation gap? Do you think we can try and do something so that we are all on the same page and there is no gaps uh, with respect
So,
to any topic for that matter?
of course, we can try to bridge the gap,
Mm,
or the main idea of bridging the gap is that you sometimes you have to give the example
mm,
to the parents to make your point understand, or if
mm,
even after that they are not able to understand, for some time you just keep silent, and
mm,
you get away from there, and you try to come later, I mean
mm,
just after a day or something like that. What happens that whenever we are talking in that point of time, while talking there, some ego comes in between
in
as well.
mm,
So when we take some time and then let the other person understand that whatever he was saying, let me think that way, then
mm.
it might happen that in that time gap, they could understand what your point of view, or in that way you can bridge that gap.
Absolutely. So it's important that you give them that time to process
Yeah,
whatever you want to convey because
and
nobody
not only
agrees.
them, I mean
Mm,
not only them, it's to us also. Like if we get that time that we can think, okay, whatever he was
mm,
saying, that sounds perfect in this situation. It's like
mm.
in both way.
That's
Not
very
only
true.
that always the parents or the grandparents are wrong and children are right. It
Children,
works both ways.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said children, so it should be children.
Sorry, children. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. Very good. So do you think talking to parents will actually help to overcome these gaps? Or do you think giving them time and then letting them to realize it on their own will help? Which one do you think will help better?
I think letting them the time to think themselves will work more better. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to speak, or you have to try to make them understand as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we discussed about the education process, like
Mm-hmm.
in what you have to become and what not. In that sense, what you can do that if in the period, in the current period, you have not that much time, then you can try to convince them that
Mm-hmm.
this is not good for me. I think that this is the area where I can devote myself in the process in better way, and that's why I want to study this only. And that is how we can uh, talk and make the discussion go further.
Mm, that's true. And when it comes to these generation gaps, uh, if we look at the lives of our parents and our life, do you think our life is easier or were our parents' life easier than ours? If so, how do you say that? And in what aspects do you feel our life is better than their life or their life is better than our life?
So generally, I like earlier I used to think that way, that
Hmm.
the life earlier was very easy and the
Hmm.
challenges were very easy. But it's not the right way of perceiving anything. Like unless you get yourself in the position and you try to do something, you
Hmm.
cannot judge it from outside and say that that was easy.
Hmm.
So now I think that everyone has its own set of challenges, or every era had its own set of challenges. So
Hmm.
the way they lived and they perceived their life, or whatever they think, according to that era, that was the perfect, or maybe if the changes can happen, so maybe they are in the position to tell us a more correct manner. And whatever we are doing, so according to their experience, uh, we can take something from there, some takeaways from their life, and we can apply them in our life and make our life better in that sense also.
Absolutely. Right. So, in your opinion, again, what do you think are some of the advantages of each new generation?
So advantages of the new generations are that we are living in a developed society in terms of technology, or whatever we take, we are getting better facilities than what they were getting at their time. So that is the big plus point for us. And uh, and what? So that is the big plus point. Yes.
Okay. So, the development in various fields is actually helping us to become better.
Right.
But on the
Right.
flip
Right.
side of it, do you think is there any disadvantage of each new generation that's coming up?
If we talk about the disadvantage, then I can only think about the time that earlier they were doing all the things, and yet they had proper time to enjoy their hobbies and other things as well. But in
Mm,
current, in this generation, what we have, that in a cut short competition, we hardly find any time. Like even if we talk about the children, the school going kids, they have some 10, 15 to 20 books to study. Or even
mm,
if I talk about my childhood, when I had started going to school, we had only just 4 to 5 books to
mm, mm,
study.
mm.
So that is how we have changed, and we hardly have any time for hobbies on or other things.
Yes,
So that is the big disadvantage.
disadvantage. Right. And one last question. So, when do you think age gap is beneficial, and when do you think it is a hindrance? So, at some point of time, we always think that okay, probably the generation gap is good or the age gap is good, but there are other reasons when we feel that it is not really good. It's a hindrance. So, when do you feel it is beneficial, and when do you think it's a hindrance?
It is beneficial when we require the experience of our older generation people to
Absolutely.
prosper, of course.
Mm,
And it becomes hindrance when we are unable to make them understand, even for the simple reasons like I discussed about the marriage or the studies. So
mm,
in those fields, whenever I think that how can we decide after just looking a girl for uh, 10 minutes that I have to enjoy rest of my life with her, but
mm,
they think that way only. And if
mm,
we talk with them, they are not going to listen us. So that is the hindrance. Or not
mm,
only the marriage purpose, even in some cases about the education, that which stream you have to choose. Like
mm,
I have experienced that many students choose science or go for engineering only
mm,
because their parents want.
mm. That is true.
So that is the hindrance.
Yes. And that there was this period, I think, when whether um, whether their child was doing well in science or not, all the parents wanted them to choose science in their grade 11 and 12 and go for engineering or medicine. They didn't consider
Right.
other professions at all. I remember that period. I think that was when my brother was finishing his school, probably around 2006, 2007. During that time, there was this rampant need for a lot of engineers, and all parents wanted their sons and daughters to be engineers at that time. It was
And,
crazy.
and that conditions is even prevalent in
Hmm.
today's time as well in the some backward states where we don't have that much resources. Like
Mm.
if we talk about Bihar and UP, the
Mm.
most of the people either going for the government job, or if
Mm.
you talk with them, they are doing their science. In
Mm.
+2, they generally do science because
Mm.
that is treated as a social prestige that, okay, your children is studying science.
Mm. That's
So
right.
that is still prevalent in some areas, and if
Mm.
not in the big cities like Delhi or Mumbai.
Mm. That's right. Okay, great. So I'm going to stop with the conversation here and give you a quick feedback based on this particular session. So I think I met you probably about 10 days or so back. And as
Right,
compared to
right,
that session, I see a lot of improvement in today's session in terms of the way you spoke. I think the topic that we are discussing also helps you to be much more confident. So today I saw
right,
you to be very, very confident while you were speaking about this topic, and you have actually worked on a lot of your areas of improvement that were given before. And today I could see that during this entire conversation. I think hardly I corrected you in any of the places because you spoke perfectly today. Of course, minor grammatical errors were there in one or two places, but that's completely fine. Over the duration, you'll be able to get over it quickly. And I definitely want to see you going in this manner, to not lose your confidence at any point of time. And I think I also told you the same thing last time, to be a little bit more expressive when you speak.
right.
It
Yes, yes,
should show. You need to show it on your face. That's very,
right,
very important. Because you are able to work on the other areas now. You've covered all the other areas. Please try to focus a little bit more on your expressions because it's a part of your body language. So you need to
right,
show some sort of expression on your face.
right,
Now
right.
that you've got your grammar right, you've got your sentence structure sorted, you've become much more confident. It's important that you work on this area as well, so that on the whole you can become a very good speaker.
Thank you for the feedback and suggestion, of course.
You're
And
most welcome.
I'm working, and it was a pleasure talking with you again. And
Yes,
really looking forward to another session.
absolutely. So please try to incorporate these feedback, and
Yes,
definitely
of course.
you're on the right track now, and keep this going.
Yeah. Thank you,
Oh,
and
thank you for
have a nice
joining.
day.
You too. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Until then, take care and bye bye.
Bye.